Porter-Williams.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. And as a member of the Health Select Committee, I too look forward to receiving this bill and the interesting discussion that will no doubt ensue from that. Mr Speaker, yes, the DHBs are going to have the opportunity to determine fluoridation into the water supply, which is an interesting take, as my colleague, the Honourable Annette King, has already discussed, the DHBs having a role rather than the territorial local authorities. But I think the other point that she made, which I want to discuss and tease out a little bit further, Mr Speaker, is that the lead that should have been taken by the Ministry of Health in this regard. It is a public health issue. It's one that many of us have been significantly lobbied about. I'm anticipating, now that this bill is in the House, that we will again be receiving many emails and requests for meetings from people who are anti-fluoridation into the water supply. It has been quite well canvassed across the country, but no doubt there will be people who are making last-minute attempts to stop fluoridation into their own local water supplies, and I'm sure that they will also submit to the Select Committee on it. Mr Speaker, in the discussion on this particular bill, there's reference made to the World Health Organisation recommending boosting fluoride to optimum levels, which obviously doesn't occur across all of the water supplies in our country. And I decided to do a little bit of research into what the World Health Organisation actually recommends as a useful approach in fluoridation. And they make a couple of comments which I would like for our Select Committee to think about when we are looking at who it is we get to come and give us advice on this particular bill. So they talk about the socio-behavioural risk factors in dental caries which are found universally and how they play a significant role in children, adults and older people. The disease level is relatively high among underprivileged population groups, people with low education, poor living conditions, people with poor dietary habits, poor living conditions, and high consumption of sugars. And they make a statement, unless serious efforts are made to tackle the social inequity of modifying risk factors and by establishing effective caries prevention programs, the level of dental caries in disadvantaged populations and countries will unduly increase. So, Mr Speaker, I thought, well, I would do a little bit of an investigation to see what the impact was on some of those so-called disadvantaged populations. And I found a report from 2011-2012 called The Health of New Zealand Adults, 2011-2012, Key Findings of the New Zealand Health Strategy. And in it, it makes for some sobering reading, Mr Speaker. It says in the key findings about 270,000 adults have had a tooth removed in the last year, and less than 1 in 2 adults have had a dental visit in the past year. What it says is 49% of the population, 49% of the population have visited the dentist once in the last year. So there's a significant amount of the population that hasn't visited the dentist in 12 months. More than half of the dentate adults reported that they only visit a dental health care worker when they have a dental health problem or never, rather than for regular checkups. This rate has increased since 2006-2007. So there is a significant proportion of our people who are not getting regular dental care. Māori and Pacific and Asian adults are less likely to have visited a dental health care worker in the past year. They're less likely than other people to, they're also more likely, Mr Speaker, to only have visited when they have dental problems or never visit. So there is a significant portion of our population who will only go if they're experiencing pain, if they have an abscess or there's some significant dental issue, or they never go. So when we're at Select Committee, when we're actually looking to the officials to provide some evidence to us, I would really like to tease out what strategy we might want to put in place to tackle those disadvantaged populations. Because at this stage, we don't appear to have an overarching strategy to deal with the dental health of our population. Now, those particular groups that I mentioned, Mr. Speaker, unfortunately also feature highly in poor nutrition and the overconsumption of sugar. The overconsumption of sugary drinks surely is a major factor in this, which is why the fluoridation of water, yes, is important. If you can actually get access to fresh water, to water supply water. Now, when we've got significant numbers of our population living in precarious situations, some of them living in cars, caravans, and those other situations, will they actually have access to water from the tap, as the Associate Minister has described? Well, I'd say in that case, no, they don't. It's not a right that every New Zealander currently has in this country. When you can't actually have a roof over your head, you cannot provide a kitchen that's going to have running water. So the whole notion of fluoridation is only part of the answer when it comes to the decent oral health of our community. So I'm really hopeful that this is part of a strategy that we can actually look at how we tackle the poor oral health of our nation. Having conversations with my colleague Stuart Nash here, who claims not to have had a filling, my experience has been quite different. I've, as a young child, through free dental care, was able to have access to, dental services free of charge. When you turn a certain age, of course, that no longer becomes free. And for a large portion of our population, the one thing that they do not do with regards to health is take care of their teeth, because the cost is prohibitive. And it's not until some major thing happens, like an abscess or the requirement to have a tooth taken out, that they will actually go to a dentist. And it's significant because poor oral health actually impacts the rest of your physical health. If you've got good oral health, you actually are, generally speaking, in much better overall health. Poor oral health actually has really bad outcomes for you in terms of your overall health condition. So, Mr. Speaker, when the bill comes to the Select Committee, I'd like to be exploring some of those other ideas and those other options, and looking at possibly having a strategy to determine how we can ensure that all of our people, including those who are the most disadvantaged, the ones that I quote, actually get a fair deal in this. And I just want to finish with the summary that has come from that particular health strategy. In 2011-2012, I'm sorry the statistics aren't more recent, but there was a key indicator that someone had had a tooth removed due to decay, abscess, infection or gum disease in the past 12 months. Well, that had gone up to 270,000 people. The statistics weren't collected in 2006-2007, which was the previous report. The indicator visited a dental health care worker in the past 12 months, 49%. There was a decrease in that. And the last indicator that they have usually visited a dental health care worker for a toothache or never. That was 55% of the population. Well, I really hope that this bill does something to turn those statistics around. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.